All right, we call to order the Planning Commission meeting for November 12th. Can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Scarborough Echo.
Present.
Commissioner Santos is absent today. Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Franz.
Present.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Here. Okay, and then Commissioner Ortiz, will you lead us to the pledge? All right, we'll go into the agenda item for public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
There are none.
All right, moving on to our minutes from October 22nd.
I raise a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scarborough Echo.
Abstain.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz.
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
I'll abstain. So we'll move it to the agenda for the next meeting. Or
Yeah, we can.
okay, thank you. All right, moving on to our study session item 5.1, a presentation from our team.
Recall. Perfect, thank you. So good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Gustavo Gomez, Principal Planner with the Community Development Department. And the study session before you tonight is a presentation to go over landscape and EV chargers for future proposed gas stations. So just wanted to give a quick recap of how we got here today. So on February 12th of this year, the Planning Commission denied the Maverick gas station project, and the project was appealed to the City Council. On April 16th, the City Council approved the Maverick gas station, but they directed staff to work with the Planning Commission to study gas stations in the City of Indio. On July 23rd of this year, the Economic Development Director presented a gap analysis presentation to the Planning Commission, and in that, the findings of that gap analysis determined that there was still approximately $18 million of unmet demand for gas stations. The Planning Commission gave staff direction to research certain topics and issues pertaining to gas stations. Some of these topics were, for example, how does the City of Indio compare to other cities in the Coachella Valley? How many gas stations does Indio currently have? And some of the environmental concerns associated with gas stations. And we overlaid the CalEnviro screen with that map over the existing gas stations. On September 10th, the Planning Commission received that presentation summarizing those research topics, which at the end, there was a request for a feasibility study and also a recommendation to the City Council for a moratorium on gas stations. Staff discussed returning to the Planning Commission to present those topics brought up by the City Council, and that's the focus of discussion for tonight. So staff did review existing guidelines, reports, and studies that identified best practices and current standards for sustainable climate and appropriate landscaping, and also we reviewed the Green Building Code related to the requirements of EV chargers. Not included in your staff report, but staff did take a look at the Coachella Valley Multi-Species Habitat Conservation Plan, and we reviewed their list of native plants and recommendation for landscaping. We did read studies from the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, regarding the benefits of trees and vegetations, and also peer studies like the Project Evergreen on how landscaping and green spaces can improve air quality. However, staff wanted to focus the studies and research that are relevant to our region and climate. So in our findings, we came across the Urban Greening Guide. This was adopted by the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, and it was created in collaboration with its member agencies and other professionals in the field. So staff wanted to look at the tree palette and wanted to make sure that these were native, water efficient, they improved air quality through the absorption of filtration and pollutants, and also reduced greenhouse gases via carbon sequestration. So we provided a sample palette of of those trees on this table here. The guide does have over 40 species of trees that are native or water efficient for here in the desert. However, these here in front of you are trees that are also, they're both native and they're both good at water conservation. So here are just what those look like when they're planted out in their, whether it's going to be in a construction site or residential home, and they varied in different colors and sizes, and then I rank them from the most that they do carbon sequestration, or they reduce CO2 to the least. The other item that we researched was EV charging stations. So we took a look at the existing California Green Building Code. I just want to note that the City Council will adopt the 2025 Green Building Code standards at the next City Council meeting, which will take effect on January 1st, 2026 until 2028. So the Green Building Code is updated every 3 years. They aim to reduce greenhouse gases, emissions, conserve energy, and establish requirements for better design and construction. So this table here specifies the number of parking spaces for EV capable based on the total number of spaces that are available or they are provided when we receive an application for review. As you can see, the trigger to require for some of these EV capable spaces is 10. So through conditions of approval, or we could ask for more than what is actually required. So the next steps is the Planning Commission to receive input on tonight's discussion, and including the discussion that we've had previously regarding the request for the feasibility study and for the recommendation to the City Council for a moratorium. And then this will be forwarded to the City Council for consideration. Then at the City Council may direct staff commission at a later date, or may direct staff to take immediate action based on the review of gas stations. And that concludes tonight's presentation, and we're open to if you have any questions.
I do have some questions.
Please, by all means.
Could we go back to where you showed the trees, like you mentioned all the 5 trees that you
Yes.
selected? Yes,
Yes.
that one. Perfect. When you mentioned that, you said that they're native trees. Like, are you referring to the Coachella Valley, to California, to what region specifically are native to?
They are. So the study, they did it on the, I'm not familiar with the region, but it is for the Coachella. They did it for the 9 cities, and then those were native for our area here in Southern California.
Perfect. And then my other question is, I mean, they're beautiful trees, and I love them. But what I've noticed that they don't really provide a lot of shade. And then personally, when I go to like a parking plaza or like a shopping plaza, I try to find the tree that has the most shade.
Yes.
Obviously, especially during summer, because we know that it gets pretty hot here. There's any way that we can incorporate like some trees that have like provide more shade, so we can provide that to the public, to our constituents, because I know that people would like for shade.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could do. Our ordinance does require that a certain amount of parking spaces, we require a tree, but maybe we could have them install maybe a more mature tree that offers more of a shaded canopy. So we could definitely do that as part of our conditions of approval.
All right.
And I just wanted to add, Commissioner Ortiz, that's really the goal tonight, is to receive that input from the Planning Commission. So at the end of the night, end of this presentation, if that's the consensus of the Planning Commission, to not only require trees that reduce CO2, but also require trees that will provide more shade, then again, we'll bundle that up with the rest of the feedback and recommendations and bring that to the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
So I have one. These trees are gorgeous, but I know that a lot of times trees that grow like the branches look pretty, they don't look real sturdy, right? And we have winds and then half the tree goes falling off. So how sturdy are the trunks of these trees? And I'm not a tree person, so I know nothing, other than it's pretty or I don't like it. Are these going to be able to sustain like an average wind? Because that's one thing I see. We have these beautiful trees, and then every time we have a wind, half the branches end up on the ground, and now we don't have any shade because the branch is gone and the tree's got to regrow. So something else I think we need to look at is how well would these trees take the wind, right? Because to put them in, great, but are they going to be able to sustain and be here for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Whatever their lifetime is. So I don't know if you guys looked at that at all, and if one of these maybe has a stronger trunk or branches than another. If not, that would be something else I think we need to consider, because that happens every single time we have a windstorm.
Yeah, that wasn't part of the our study tonight, but we could definitely include that to make sure that the trees that are being installed are, they could last when they're installed. Yep.
Okay, well, maybe we can open up for public comments if there are any, and then we might ask you to come back if there are any questions. Oh, we have one.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jackie Lopez, longtime resident of the City of Indio. My comments are regarding the gas station and the moratorium discussion that happened last Wednesday. I understand that staff's recommendation today is to receive the presentation and provide guidance not to adopt any moratorium or pause on new applications. While staff is asking for input on priorities and concerns, there's no formal pause in place, and at least 2 new applications are already being prepared. When former Director Kevin Snyder reported to the Commission a few years ago, he noted that Indio had already approved its 22nd gas station, showing how quickly our capacity is being reached. Continuing to accept applications while we wait for a study risks undermining careful planning and targeted policy decisions. I strongly urge this Commission to recommend to Council an immediate temporary application hold until the study is completed and policy direction is established. A pause is not a ban. It's a responsible measure to ensure that the city's planning decisions are deliberate, data-driven, and in the community's best interest. Let's make sure that this pause leads to meaningful progress and not missed opportunities for planning. I just want to, again, thank you, Chair Rodriguez Ceja, for your leadership and the commissioners for continued service to our city. And Commissioner Ceja, I had the honor of serving alongside you during my time as a planning commissioner. We didn't always agree with our goal. We didn't always agree, right? But we all had the same goal, which was aligned, and that was doing what's best for our city. So thank you again, and I urge you to take action on that.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. We appreciate your comment. Any other comments? No? Okay. All right, great. All right, we can, maybe we'll ask you to come back up. Do you have any questions, Megan? Anything?
I happened to watch the council meeting from last week and was a little bit confused that maybe what we recommended or what we said as a commission wasn't quite clear. I was under the impression that we were recommending to council that we would like a moratorium on gas stations and also a feasibility study. And I believe Commissioner Ortiz was the one that actually stated that. But it seems that it's been kind of lost. And I don't know, do you want to add anything, Christian?
Yeah, I guess just the clarification, because you did bring it up. So the point for tonight is that we are going to give you feedback, and in the agenda, as part of a action for council, is to take our recommendation that we made in September.
Correct. So I apologize if the communication wasn't clear at that meeting. So they specifically asked if we had completed a study. We said no, a consultant hasn't been hired. We haven't done a study. But what we did do is research. And we did also, we've mentioned multiple times, I think, to the commission, and the council is aware that the recommendations from the Planning Commission will be presented at a future council meeting. So we're going to go ahead and, of course, the moratorium, the feasibility study, and then whatever we receive tonight, we're going to go ahead and bring that back to the council. So if it wasn't clear, I'll take responsibility for that, but we definitely have our direction to bring the input and the recommendations from the commission, and then the council will decide on next steps.
Right. Yes.
I think I was in that meeting, but it did get a little confused. Did we actually vote to make a recommendation? Because that, to me, I've always thought when we're making an official request, we have a vote, a first, a second, and an actual vote, and we didn't vote. So so I thought the conversation was that this is something we're still working on. It could be something we bring back in the future, but I don't have the same recollection. Now, mind you, we could all be sitting in the same room and hear a very different story, right? But to me, if there's not a vote, then there was not an official recommendation. So I just want to clarify that. Doesn't mean we won't do that today, but for that meeting, I'm also a little confused as to where we actually ended up by the end of the meeting. But either way, it brought us to this point, so I think we should just figure out what are we doing from this point, right? Take the information that we discussed at the last meeting, take this more information, decide if we're going to hire a consultant, there's going to be a cost. If we're not going to hire a consultant, does staff have the ability to do a feasibility study, and how long would it take? Because if we're doing a pause, I do not have a problem with doing a pause, but government moves slowly, and everybody knows that. So we need to decide, is it going to be, I don't know what the minimum time is, 90 days, 6 months. You know, we need to set up some parameters so this doesn't get lost and we don't move forward with this feasibility, hire the consultant or staff doing it or what. So I just want to make sure if we do something, there's going to be some set parameters. What are we looking for? And what is the time frame to have this completed?
And just for clarification, because I do think that we heard very different things, I specifically said we are making an action. We said we have a majority consensus that this is the action, and I said to them, this is the recommendation. And we said, yes, yes. I just watched the video.
Okay.
Well, and I can share it. But it's there, and so I think what Megan was saying was that wasn't what was shared with the council the last time around, and we did specifically bring it up. And so I understand you're saying, yeah, you're right, there was no vote. But I also think there was a lot of confusion, right? We were talking about whether it was an action item, could we take some action?
why
There
there
was
wasn't
some
a
back and forth, and so I think, but at the end of the item, I did ask. So is this, we have consensus, and then we said yes, and then it was verified that yes, we can make this recommendation. So I guess because it's not on an action item today, does it become null? I guess that's a question for you, Jennifer. Like, what does that mean?
So if I recall, okay, so a couple of things. Number one is, if I recall, when we did, the Planning Commission acted via consensus, right? So there wasn't a formal vote, et cetera. That said, I could tell you that staff, along with myself, have kind of been working behind the scenes to kind of prep City Council. And if you listen to the City Council meeting, I think it was from last week as well, during some City Council comments, something was brought up as well regarding this issue. So staff is well aware. We're trying to, I've been working on it as well along with staff to bring something forward to the City Council. We don't know exactly when that's coming because, again, this is something that's in staff hands and I guess collectively staff's hands. But that said, what we're still trying, my understanding is what we're still trying to do is to collect more data. This specific action was brought up by the City Council, as I recall, during the Maverick appeal. And so this this, although it goes along with gas stations, from what I remember, is it came up during the appeal of the Maverick gas station. And City Council had specific direction to please bring something like this forward to the Planning Commission so that we, meaning City Council, could get further input specifically related to landscaping EV charging stations, because those two things were kind of earmarked, I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of pulled out, by the City Council. So I guess kind of to everybody's concern, this is a big issue, right? And so I think it's been done maybe in parts. Maybe it should have, come just as one big issue and that would have been it. But I think what happened is also due to the Maverick appeal, and it went forward to council. So we kind of got things in bits and pieces and parts. And so I'm kind of talking for staff here, and staff could correct me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to put everything together in kind of one package to then present to council. And I know I'm personally working on things, and I know today even staff and I had a meeting on this. So with that, we'll see where council wants to take it. Planning Commission is obviously a recommendation body to City Council. We do not make policy. City Council makes policy. So if and when all that stuff is all the work, etc., gets compiled by staff, we will bring it to City Council and then they could do what they would like, either action or bring it back to Planning Commission or table it. They could do whatever they want with the information provided. So it was a very long-winded answer, but hopefully that provides some clarification, and we're kind of where we are in the process.
Yeah, I guess just for me, I want to make sure that, and this is why I asked about what will be on the agenda next time you bring this up to the council. And the reason is because we're here talking about all of the environmental interventions that could be done for this particular land use, right? And that's great. And to me, those two things are separate. The recommendation for the moratorium, this pause, had nothing to do whether we wanted to revisit how we designed gas stations, where gas stations went, did we need more or did we not? That is the conversation that was to be had when we did the data. And what I remember, the recommendation that was made to go to council was to say, let's put a pause on this. And part of the reason is because we have seen an incremental of applications coming in. So our previous commissioner was saying, when I started in 2020, we had 17. In 2023, we got the report and it was 22. And so today we're at 32 with 2 more down the pipeline. If those go through, we've doubled that amount of gas stations in the city in 5 years. And so the conversation that was being had during that meeting was not whether we wanted to explore further data or if we wanted to better understand what were the interventions that could be integrated into the design of these types. What we were saying is we have an oversaturation, which is a very different conversation than design. It's an oversaturation, and we should pause for now. And let's just recall, it was brought up during comments from the council. It was not even anything that was on the agenda. So had one of our council members not brought it into the conversation from the dais, it wouldn't have even been a formal conversation that was being had. And this was an ongoing conversation. So I just want to make sure that we are very clear, because there's been a lot of input from the community. Residents have taken the time to give us their input. They've, at every time, not just this last year, always, since we've started talking about this issue or need in our community to evaluate gas stations as a whole, residents have been very engaged and have been committing their time to send in public comments, both through email, showing up here, giving us direct comments. And so I just want to make sure that we are being fully transparent with the community, that if they're taking their time to come and give us their input, and the commission is making a recommendation to go to city staff, then that is exactly how we anticipated. And I was told during that meeting that it was going to be something that was coming in the next agenda, and it wasn't the case. So, and I know that there had been somebody reached out to both of us, Brian, through email and said, hey, we were waiting for this. You guys said it was going to be on the agenda, and it's not on the agenda. So this is not to point fingers, but I do think it's important to set things straight about what it is that we were trying to achieve, and that the conversation and the recommendation about the moratorium was not about not doing studies as council had requested. It was about doing all of those studies, but putting a pause on the number of applications we were getting so that we didn't continue to do the average of 2 gas stations a year, which now we have 2 applications.
So I guess my question is here, based on what we have in front of us today, okay, it doesn't seem like we have do we have an ability to make an action at this point? Or are we just looking at this study session on the green urbaning and the trees and that? I mean, I know that there's multiple parts to this conversation. So today, right now, what is it that we can do and what is it that we cannot do?
Well, it is an agendized item. Even though we are talking about EV chargers and landscaping, it's okay because it's the same topic, gas stations. If we want to revisit this moratorium and the feasibility study, I have been very clear about those 2 items that I would bring it back to the council. So, but if there's a change in that recommendation and that feedback, that input, then we can certainly receive it tonight. It's a agendized item, as I said, on gas stations. So the goal is tonight to get all that feedback, including the primary ones, which is the landscaping, the EV chargers, and bring it to the council. And then the council will decide regarding those 2 items. I will say, doing some research, when it was brought up a few years ago regarding a study, we didn't have enough staffing. We don't have the staffing in-house with that expertise to do a market study. And then also, we basically did not do a study. Now, it's come back, which is fine. Issues are reoccurring in the planning world. But back then, we didn't have the funding or the staffing. But again, we're going to be bringing it to the council if they direct us to find funding to hire a consultant to do that study, or if they direct us to work on a moratorium with our city attorney, then we will do that. And any other things that are going to be brought up in regards to these other issues, landscaping and EV chargers. So again, I'm trying to be very clear, but I understand because there's so many things that have been said, whether from the public or on the commission or at a council meeting. But in my mind, it's 2 items. It's to date is a moratorium and the feasibility study, and then whatever we receive tonight.
So I guess I do have a question. Maybe Gustavo and Brian, you guys can help me. What's new about the EV things, data you guys showed us, or what's going in? Because right now, currently, if you put a gas station for however many parking spaces, you still need to have EV capability. Like that's,
Correct.
We're not bringing anything new. What's changed? Why are we reviewing it now?
So we're reviewing it because, so this is an opportunity to actually, so there's a gap between the first 10 parking stalls. So if we want to do a condition of approval to add more parking or have more EV capable, like instead of having EV capable, just having actual EV charging. So we could request that. So we can't go lower than the threshold, but we could definitely ask for more. So that's what's before you tonight.
And I guess just to follow up to that, how many of those EV capabilities have we been able to plug in? Because we have a electricity issue. So we've been having this conversation for quite some time now, right? The capability is there, but we can't put a charger there. So this is, I guess, just to understand is, what are we being presented with right now that is really different than what we are doing now? You can't plug, even if I say, let's add 20 chargers per one stall, will that happen? Will that make a difference, or has it made a difference? Have we been able to make all of the EV charger capabilities that we've been requiring from all of these developments, are they up and running?
So, yeah, it's a tricky question, but I'm going to do my best to explain that. So, it's state law, so the Green Code applies. They have to do it. They don't have to actually put the chargers, but they have to put the EV-ready infrastructure on the ground, pre-plumbed, pre-wired, things like that. So, no, they have to. The tricky part about it is they also have to get approval for the connection through IID. So that's where it gets a little tricky. As you know, we're limited in power in various areas of the city. So, but as far as the green building code, they have to do it. Now, if there's problems with IID, that could be a private matter between IID and the person who's building the station. But the reason why we even have that topic is during that council meeting, they said, hey, I want you to look into EV chargers, doing more or looking at that, because there have been many comments by the council in the past that maybe one day gas stations will be obsolete, and so now we're stuck with an abandoned station, and so that could be the an option to have not just a charging station instead. So that's why we brought it back, is specifically the landscaping and the EV charger discussion, if you will. The council wanted us to bring it back to you. So.
Can you bring up the chart that showed the minimums, you know, the under 10, over 10, yada, yada? Because that's where we can make recommendations, right? We can say, maybe instead of 0 under 10, we want 1 under 10 or something, right? That's where we can actually have some impact today.
Correct.
Okay.
But to make sure that we're being responsible with the recommendation, I guess my question again, from the gas stations that we've required to do EV charging capabilities, how many of them have we put up a charger on there? Because it doesn't matter that we say 20. Not today. Not today, but what I'm saying is, let's just put it on the table that was this study session necessary at this point and stalling our recommendation to talk about how many EV chargers we should be putting per land recommendations, if we know in fact that all, if not most, of the EVs that we've been requiring these developers to put up have not even gone live? So I just want to make sure that we are understanding clearly that this session that you all thought that was necessary and is part of the reason why we're holding up our recommendation, I just want to understand what is the real added value to this conversation here if we haven't been able to make those EV stations that we've been requiring already live. And if I was to make a recommendation of 70, will that really make a difference?
Well, I think, again, that's why we're here tonight. So, Commissioner Ceja, if you want us to actually do that research, we can look at the stations and see how many actually have a charging station, you know, installed. And, you know, the ones that had to do the equipment under the ground through pre-wire, pre-plumb. So that's something, again, you can add to it. We are kind of running through a little bit of a deadline here to get things going quickly, but we certainly could do that as part of the recommendation tonight as well, as to try to gather some facts on that. I think that's a good question to ask.
My question is, I know that it's a lot of moving pieces, you know, and there's a lot of conversations going on. So when do you think staff or yourself, your department, will bring to the city council that recommendation that we gave you guys like a month ago?
So we're literally working behind the scenes right now. We're waiting for this input on these last two topics tonight. And I'm working with the city manager, the assistant city manager, to see how quickly we can get it on the agenda. So that's why this meeting is important, to kind of button it up and see what your last input is on these two topics so that we can quickly generate the staff report. We'll also put together some of the information that's already been presented to the Planning Commission, like the gap analysis, as well as your recommendations, so that now the City Council has that in their hands and they can decide on how they want to move forward. So as quickly as possible, to answer your question, Commissioner Ortiz.
Early next year?
Not necessarily. We could, we're looking at two options. It could be on the next meeting or the following meeting. So we're looking at trying to do this very quickly, trying to wrap it up by the end of the year. So.
Okay, so I guess here's the feedback. Well, does anybody else have any more feedback? We got a great presentation. Thank you for the trees. My feedback is this. I guess I'll start. My feedback is this feels like stalling. This moment, this study session. We made a recommendation about a month ago. We were told it was going to be on the agenda. It was not. And then this study session came about. We were never against continuing to study and look at all of the possible land use opportunities, all of the metrics we should be evaluating. That was never in question. I think, in fact, the recommendation was, let's get all of that stuff going. But the recommendation came after we were discussing oversaturation and a number that is alarming in comparison to other cities. In fact, if I remember from the public comments on that meeting, they were saying your data is off. The industry people came to us and said, your numbers are wrong. Your numbers are off. That's not even how the market works. And so we said, okay, that's alarming. We should really take a step back and see what it is that we should be measuring. What data are we bringing to our council to make the decisions? If the market itself, and I remember very clearly saying, let's take that pause and invite the industry to come in and tell us how we should be evaluating, and maybe they'll give us the numbers. Heck, we might not even need to expend any of our money. They might be interested in doing it. They came to give a public comment themselves. So one out of many representatives of our developers in our city, but they surely did come, and so maybe they would be interested in helping us look for all of that data that we just don't have the staff or the money to do. So that was where that was coming from. The recommendation to put a pause on applications, not whether we wanted to continue to study the situation and see what the best land uses for this type of development was. And so I appreciate, and this is not about pitting anyone against the team. I know you guys are working really hard, but I want to be very frank and transparent because I'm getting calls from residents saying, what's going on? Why are we taking the time to send in our public comments? Why are we taking the time to invite our friends and neighbors to be involved in this conversation? What came to question during that September 10th meeting was, is this an action item or not? And I said it's an action item because people are reading the agenda. We in the community know how to read these agendas. We know about these topics. There are many advocates, many people who are looking into this. So we're not relying on one specific group of people in our city, just our staff, to really understand the issue. And I think City Council is interested in hearing from their constituents as well, and they have, through us. They've heard, they've seen the comments, they show up to our meetings, so it's not something that they've been not aware of. And in fact, the conversations are very public, and I think the reason it was brought up during the council meeting was because they keep up with the things that we're up to. So just to say that the feedback is, it's great that we're seeing all the possible EV options that we have. We have some stuff in place, and in fact, if we were to go hard and do the maximum allowed, it really wouldn't make too much of a difference at this moment because there's no power to get them going live. I really appreciate the comment about the trees. Shade is really important in all of this. It's not just about the carbon sequestration, it's about the urban heat island effect. By putting these slabs of concrete, these types of projects, especially in communities, and this is again the question that was coming up, these are going in low income, predominantly Hispanic communities. They're not going where our richest, whitest neighbors live. So that was another question. We were saying, are we adding these to the best places in our neighborhood? We're oversaturating them in areas that are already having issues of pollution, and we're having them in areas that are, disadvantaged, that are rent burden, and we're making their neighborhoods just a little bit less desirable. So just want to say that by doing this study is going against, I think, what the intention of the recommendation and why we even brought the issue up in the first place. And so I appreciate all the time and the energy that went into providing us all of this information, but what we really wanted to hear and what we really needed to know is the city of Indio inadvertently adding more burden to disadvantaged communities? Are we oversaturating our city with this type of development? Not whether we should add more EVs to the requirement, or if we should do something that's pretty, we should be doing anyway, which is adding trees to all developments, which I think we've gotten really good about asking for. So that's just my feedback to the team.
So, Chair, do you want us to then go through the process of making any changes to what they've presented to us, or do we just want to say, follow state of California rules, and let's go? I mean, we have something in front of us, either we do something or we don't do it, right? you know, we already gave some recommendations on the trees, and I agree with you, trees are fabulous, the more, the better, but they gotta be the right trees, and you've been talking a lot about that for years, right? With the right shade. So how do you see this moving forward?
I mean, I think we're hearing great things. By all means, I'm not trying to discourage, I'm just giving staff my feedback on this presentation. I'm not trying to discourage you all from wanting to give some recommendations. I personally don't see there a lot of value for this conversation at this very moment because we don't understand the broader issue of gas stations, and that's what I'm trying to get across. So by all means, if you have recommendations, if the presentation was illuminating and you were like, you know what, I am convinced this is how we go about changing these types of developments, I mean, by all means, please.
I mean, I agree with Chair. I don't feel the need to recommend anything for this because this is not even what the discussion is about. I mean, for me, just with Brian even bringing up, going back to saying that we previously talked about this before I was on this commission, about that Kevin Snyder had talked about having a feasibility study and it wasn't possible. So now my whole thing is that, well, why are we even going to do that? That's a waste of public funds. We know what we want. We want a moratorium.
I mean, I agree somewhat with the chair and what Commissioner Caboro said, but at the same time, I do think my trees. I do want to bring that recommendation. You know, we need the right trees with the right shade, so I want to add that recommendation to the staff report or to the city council. I do want, that recommendation. But
You guys said that the city is going to adopt the 2025 California Green Building Code here in the next few weeks. Does that in any way change the chart that we saw, or is that going to continue to be exactly the same?
Great question. And it is next week, the second reading of the ordinance for the California building codes, including the green code. So the table would stay the same. There's no proposed changes to that table. And again, just reminding the commission, even though the hot topic is a moratorium, again, the landscaping and the EV chargers is a direct relationship to what the council wanted the commission to take a look at and, you know, discuss and then bring back recommendation. If there isn't a consensus, I can still bring back to the council some of your thoughts. For example, some commissioners didn't feel that it would make a difference. Others thought that requiring this type of landscaping for shade, for CO2 reduction would be useful. It could be as simple as that, if you'd like.
I mean, I'm fine with that if that's where we want to go. I mean, if we're at least following the California Green Code, that's at this point maybe all we need to do at this point, specifically because IID is not something we have a lot of control over, and I know we're working on it, but it's not going to be fixed probably tomorrow. So when we talk about a moratorium and the fact that this conversation to have a pause on applications until a feasibility and or marketing study is complete, my recommendation would be that if council says that's where we're going, which I think would be great because we do need to answer all of these questions, we need to be very specific as to what questions we want answered out of this feasibility market study, how much time we think it will take so we are realistic in our expectations, and our community understands that we're going to do this and we're going to do it in 45 days, 90 days, maximum of 6 months. I don't know. You know, I'm not a feasibility study person. But I think if we're going to do a pause, a moratorium, it's a pause, not a moratorium, right? We're not going to eliminate ever having more gas stations. We want to better understand them in our community and then create the proper rules and regulations around what the study comes back with. So that's my recommendation. If we're going to do it, we need to know exactly what we're looking for, how much time it should take, and when we should have this back before us. Because I'm assuming it would come to us and then it would go to council. Or would it just go to council and bypass us completely?
So if there is a moratorium, it would just go to council. Under the government code, it could completely bypass planning commission. So if council decides to act on a moratorium, possibly in the future, council could also dictate as to whether or not there will be studies and what those studies look like, et cetera. But it would not go before planning commission.
But the council could say, okay, we're gonna do a pause, we're gonna do the study, and then we want the study to go back to planning commission before it comes back to us. That's
Absolutely.
a possibility.
Absolutely.
So
Council
to
could
me,
always,
that would be a really good thing, because we have been talking about gas stations for, I don't know, a while. And it would be great, even for our own ability for future development, to understand what was in that feasibility study. Versus it just going directly to council and we never see it.
so moratoriums go directly to council. They do bypass planning commission, per state law. But that said, if a moratorium were to go to city council could always say, hey, listen, we're gonna put this moratorium in place for however long, and we're gonna request that planning commission talk about it, discuss it, and provide us, the city council, with planning commission's feedback. So council has absolute discretion in doing something like that.
My question to staff is, when we talk about pause, are we talking, do we have an idea of like the time frame? Would be like 6 months, 12 months, 24 months? Like, do we have an idea of like what the pause will be, or?
So let me go ahead and answer that. So legally speaking, there is no such thing as a pause other than a moratorium. So it doesn't really exist. Council would have to formally act to quote unquote pause, which would be a moratorium. Moratoriums can last as extended up to 24 months. So that is the longest time a moratorium can last.
Is there a minimum?
What was that?
Is there a minimum, 30 days, 45 days?
So how it works is a moratorium, if council were to adopt something like this, it would go to the city council. As it's an urgency item is really what it is. I mean, it's really like these are important matters. And it's not a forced reading, but the moratorium stays in effect for 45 days. And then within that 45-day period, if council wants to extend it, we could go ahead and place notice in the newspaper, and then that's a public hearing, and then have a second public hearing for the extension. That extension can last 22 months and 15 days. So you get 45 days, and then the extension, which is another 22 months and 15 days for a moratorium.
Another question that I have for staff is, so right now, so we have 2 applications pending, right, for new gas stations?
No, we do not.
So we don't have any-
there's a lot of talk out there, people trying to predict what we have and what we don't. So the only thing that we have is, and we will let the council know, is 1 pre-application, which is not an entitlement. It's not a full application that's under review that would be brought to the planning commission. 1 pre-application. Now, we get calls and people inquire about different sites, even express interest. But as far as what we have pending is very, very, very little. It's 1 pre-application. And even after that pre-application, that's probably been, I want to say, between a month and a month and a half. There's been no full applications submitted. So there isn't a lot that are in the hopper, so to speak. So.
Okay.
And I think I introduced it too because I was watching the meeting with the council, and you said there had been 2, but I think you meant interest. Like 2 people had called in and gave you interest or something.
Yeah, what I mentioned to the council is that there's pre-application, so I stated that. And I also mentioned that, yeah, someone is interested in a site, but there's been nothing to move forward with that interest.
I just say I think it's clear that there's interest, like, from the community, that for us to give the recommendation to city council, which we did, to look into this matter, you know. So I think with what we just talked right now, I don't know if we have to do it again, but I think it's time for staff to bring it to city council, and then they decide, because like Jennifer said, we don't make policy. We only can make a recommendation, but at least I know the community is asking for it, so at least city council can give us guidance and can make policy on that specific issue. So I think it's time for the city council to wait on this issue.
Do we need a motion to direct because it sounds like we're all in agreement to, follow the California, green building code requirements at this point, and we added the comments about the trees and the concerns
from
and all that.
Commissioner
So
Ortiz,
do we need a motion to do that, or are we good with that?
I want to take a motion. So because I think it's an action item, correct?
It is.
Right? Yeah.
It's a
so
study session
It's a
item
study
now.
session action item. I would, just for formalization, I would take a motion, and the motion that I heard, please go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, but the motion that I heard is to continue with the green building code, recognize that, to the extent that we could add shade trees where appropriate, and also, continue with if there were to, I don't know, well, I'll leave it at that, and you guys could tell me if there's anything in addition to that.
In regards to the trees, one thing that we were kind of maybe nudging the commission towards is if they wanted us to make changes either to our code, or we wanted to adopt some of the things that have already been done at CVAG. So that guide, that greening guide. So I didn't really hear that tonight per se, but I think Commissioner Ortiz was probably the loudest to say that he does want more trees, and specifically, but I don't want to misquote you, in order to help both with shade and reducing CO2. Is that correct? Yeah. So does the rest of the commission, the green code, there's no recommendation to require more, just keep it status quo. But as far as the landscaping, I have one. Are there others that would like to make a recommendation to the council for additional landscaping, such as what we presented tonight?
What's the gallon recommendation for the design guidelines? How many gallons are those trees that they're planting?
No, that's a good question. I don't know if it actually says the number of gallons, but we can go ahead. Do you have?
Yeah, typically they say that the trees are supposed to be 24 bucks or 15 gallons installed.
Let's bump that up. We make a recommendation to increase that, give us bigger trees. They'll do better.
Yeah.
The problem with those types of trees is that you don't always know if they're going to grow healthy because they're too immature and the sun beats down on them. So it's actually part of the problem because they don't have canopy. And so when you plant these type of trees, you want bigger, more mature trees is what I'm saying.
So what size would you recommend? And when it comes to putting trees in a parking area, sometimes I thought there was limitations because of the islands.
Correct.
and
Sometimes
that
there's
kind of stuff.
only so much space. That's why you can trust staff when we're reviewing the landscape plans to make decisions on if a tree, working with the landscape architect. You can't plant a 24-inch box a lot of times in a small 2 or 3 foot wide planter. But, it can be done. But like the trees that are being planted right out here, those are 24-inch box. It's going to be very, very hard, just in the experience that I have, to get larger than 24-inch box for a couple reasons. First, it's very, very expensive. And then secondly, a lot of those trees are just too big for the planting areas. You certainly could still make that recommendation. I usually tell people that 24-inch box is really ideal, but depending on, you're right, if it establishes well, it's watered well, and then, other factors. Of course, our climate is a huge factor to see if these trees are going to become, nice, vibrant, healthy shade trees, large trees. But the 24-inch box is kind of the sweet spot.
I actually think we talked about this quite a lot when we did our general plan update ago, and that was something that kept coming up, that if they were too big, they would not take or grow well in the size. So, we could say something like, if the area allows it.
No,
They won't?
no, and we can tell developers what they need to design and how big those places need to be. That's part of our guidelines. We decide that. So let's just be really clear and put it out there. We tell them how they should design, not tell us what fits.
Isn't that in our general guidelines, though, the plans that we did?
If we
says-
change it,
that's
if we
different.
change
That's
it
an
now,
amendment. That's
if we
an
change
amendment
it
then.
now, we're making recommendations. So if our recommendations is to add bigger trees and to change the design guidelines so that those trees can fit, we can do that.
So we could recommend either a code amendment, or you can recommend this guide, and then the guide also can be modified to require larger, different trees. So those are kind of some options, but Commissioner Ceja is correct. We definitely make decisions when we're reviewing landscape plans for types of species, size of the species. So that's under our purview. But if you want to recommend a code amendment, obviously that has to be recommended to the council, then they would make a change to the code.
Well, I think we're good. I think you've heard enough from us. I think we have some good recommendations. We want trees, shade trees, the trees that fit, not twigs. Let's do what the state of California is requiring us to do. So all of this is the bare minimum. Let's do it. Let's just do it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to do the bare minimum.
Well, the green code.
And all the great things that everybody
The
said.
green code is the bare minimum, but the.
I can second that. I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Scarborough Echo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Franz,
Yes.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your work. We'll move on to commissioner comments. Any comments?
Yes. The Indio Barbecue Festival was great, so thank you, staff, for putting that together year after year. You guys are keep knocking it out of the park with so many events. I didn't run it, but I also stopped by the 5K on Tuesday. So again, thank you for all the events that you guys put together for the community.
Okay, I'll go. Well, I'm sad to say that this is my official last meeting with the Planning Commission. I am stepping down in my role. It has been a difficult decision after 5 long years. But I feel like I've done a lot of great work, and I feel like we have a great body up here, and I can take some time to work on my personal projects, on my professional projects. The bandwidth is limited. And to be completely frank, I'm not up here because I like being on the dais. I'm up here because I want to contribute meaningfully. And if I don't have the bandwidth to really study those agendas and to really get in here and provide something, I'm just added weight, and I want to make space for someone who has the time and the energy to do that. I'm not going away. I live in the community. You will probably see me over there a lot of the times. Council will see a lot more of me now because I'll get to say all the things that I don't get to say up here because I need to be unbiased. 5 years ago when I started at the commission, I came and I remember the first design review that I did, and I was like, where are all the trees? And everybody was, and it was in Zoom because it was during COVID, and everybody was like giving me these like looks like, what the hell is he talking about? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And I was like, no, really, where are all our trees? 5 years later, our developers are coming, and they're spending at least 2 slides on the landscape plan to really help us understand what that is. With a different body, we were able to put a moratorium and a prohibition for 5 years for the storage facilities. That was a tough conversation. We didn't always see eye to eye, and it was very much like this, very, going back and forth, and we came. And we did this because we felt this is really what the community needed, and there were better uses for the land use. And even the conversation that we're having today is really heated, but it's a conversation. One of the very first projects that I was also reviewing was a gas station, and I was saying, we have so many of them. We have 17. Why do we have 17? Look at the cities behind us. Why are we not talking about this? And it wasn't a conversation that we were always ready to have, and just getting shut down. So I'm actually really proud that some of the very first things that I started coming in and kind of being the odd guy out and being the voice that was sort of off to the corner are the conversations that we're having now. And I feel really, really proud that I've been able to bring this perception or this idea of environmental justice. It's always been at the forefront of what I've been doing. And I want to share with the community and with you all that the way that I've seen planning is not about giving the developers what they want. That's not the reason why you become an urban planner or why you should join the Planning Commission. What we're doing here is we are making sure that we are building a healthy, vibrant community for the residents that live here, the residents that will live here. And that means sometimes we're not going to say the popular thing. I've had developers cuss me out on Facebook. I got the receipts because I'm saying things that they just don't like. I've had people come up to me and say, hey, you're going to piss a lot of people off. And my work is in planning. And so they're like, they're not going to want to work with you. And I guess just to end with saying that the responsibility that we have is to the community, to the residents. And when the residents are coming here and they're saying, there's a real need, because people are suffering with environmental injustice. And environmental racism is a thing in many communities. And what that means is that types of developments go in communities over and over again. And if we're turning a blind eye, we are making it worse for those communities. Our city has a large population of low-income immigrants that are trying to just put food on the table and cannot come to these meetings. So it is our responsibility as the commission to speak on behalf of all of them. And so I just want to end with that and say that I'm very thankful for staff, your patience with me. Know that my passion and where all of this comes from is that place, is that I'm working really hard to give a voice to the folks who can't, they're too busy just trying to make it work. Thank you.
Comments still? Commissioner? So I want to say thank you, Christian. I've always loved trees, but I definitely love them more now, okay? And I know we don't always see eye to eye, like you said, but, you know, I agree with you. We want a vibrant, healthy community that we can all be proud of living in. And that's what we should all be doing up here, right? We need developers, but we also need quality development, and that's where we get an opportunity sometimes to make an impact on those communities. But I do thank you, and I wish you the best of luck on your next adventure, and I look forward to seeing you over there. Thank you.
I want my 3 minutes.
Two.
I would say one, but now that you said it, well, I just say I had the pleasure to serve with you like a little under a year. So I want to say thank you. Like you said, like Gloria said, sometimes we didn't agree eye to eye, but I do believe that you had your heart in the right place. You want the community to be better. So thank you for your service, and then we wish you the best.
All right, staff items.
Well, I also wanted to say, even though I only worked with you for about 10 months, Commissioner Ceja, I do appreciate your planning background, and I do appreciate 5 years is a long time. So I know it can be, you know, a lot of time to read the staff reports, to come to the meetings. Sometimes you might have other plans. So even though only 10 months, I do appreciate a lot of what you've done. And I wish you well. I know you're very busy with work. I'm sure you want to have a life. So thank you so much for serving on the commission, and we hope we can get someone that's as devoted as you to come onto the commission, because that is extremely important for people to really want to see the city succeed and grow. I just wanted to make two quick little items. One is our new city hall. We're very, very proud of it. We have been moving into it and open to the public today. Today was the first day that we were officially open to the public, even though we've been moving boxes and going back and forth as of Friday. We just opened to the public today. So the old building, I'm hearing that next month the old building right next to us will be demolished for a plaza and for additional parking and things like that. So parking is going to be a little bit more difficult for a few months, because there's going to be work being done in that area that will provide the additional parking. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then secondly is, we wish we had enough items for a December meeting, but we don't. I know the Madison Point project is a big project. They're not quite ready, but most likely it'll be either January or February. So even though the next meeting would have been in December, we would ask that the commission continue to the January 14th meeting instead of the December meeting. And other than that, that concludes the staff items.
Thank you, staff. All right. If there's nothing else, then we will go ahead and adjourn to the next Planning Commission meeting on December 10th.
No, it would be
excuse me.
January, yeah.
January 14th.
January 14th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.